Hello and welcome. So today, based on your request, I will be sharing my thoughts and perspective on what type of breathing you should be striving for when you are experiencing prolapse and pelvic floor dysfunction in general, because to create a healthy and reflexive pelvic floor, so we don't want a hypertense pelvic floor, but we don't want a too loose pelvic floor either, but a nice balance in between, and that is called reflexive pelvic floor. And a reflexive pelvic floor will respond to whatever activities that you choose to do throughout the day. So if you are carrying things, if you need to run for the bus, if you are squatting for whatever reason, going to the toilet, a reflexive pelvic floor is a pelvic floor that supports your movement and that you don't have to think about all day long. So when I had my symptoms, when I was experiencing the symptoms of prolapse, heaviness, bulging, I was aware 24/7 of my pelvic floor, and it's not really a body part that you should be aware of in that sense. I mean, I guess no body part you should be aware of. They should be there to function properly and help you move through life. But sometimes the different body parts wants our attention for some reason. So we are experiencing symptoms, and then we need to go and understand what do these symptoms mean and adjust our daily habits and daily activities to try to support the symptoms to not get worse, but instead reversing them. And breathing is a great example of being more aware throughout your day and your daily life, how you position yourself. So breathing, of course, is fundamental because the breathing muscles up in the chest, with the intercostal muscles and the diaphragm, for example, these are directly connected to all the small muscles in the pelvic floor. So the pelvic floor doesn't really have one big muscle, it's separated muscles, and they are all connected to the breathing muscles. So it's a great question, how should I breathe? But I just want to back a few steps here before we start to talk about the breathing itself, because what's even more important, or what's the foundation of breathing, is actually posture. So if you don't have the right posture, it doesn't matter if you're breathing in a correct way. And I remember when the symptoms for myself was at the worst point, I was so confused in how should I stand? Like, I don't know, I'm just so scared to make everything worse. So I remember I called my hypopressives teacher, Abby, who many of you already know too now. And she just went back to basics, starting to explain everything to me. And though, I'm a yoga teacher, I have been working with so many bodies, postures, and I was just so confused, and I had to re-evaluate everything from scratch. And just a few things I learned, especially on my own journey, but also through helping other women who suffers from especially prolapse, is I'm gonna share now and is really fundamental. So first of all, of course, the feet and legs. You need to be aware of how you position them, and you don't want to walk and move through your day in a complete imbalanced way. So for example, if your feet are pointing this way, you want to start to become aware so that the toes are actually in line with the heels and the legs. So that's the first step, like really walking straight with the feet. The next thing is, where do you put your weight? So so many people, since we are living in this society of always moving forward and preferably fast forward, we put our weight more toward the toes. And we don't want that. We want 80% of the weight back onto the heel. So when you're walking, it's much more of a feeling of walking up straight, if you know what I mean. And you can go ahead and try it now if you want to pause this video, or just, while I continue to talk, you can just stand up, place your feet hip width apart, and just notice how you position the toes. Maybe move back and forward a little bit to notice the change in where you put the weight. And once you feel you have 80% on the heels, just take a few steps from here and see how that feels. And it is very different compared to being like forward all the time. And what happens when we are leaning forward in this way at all the time is that the fascia will actually come from behind and move, spiral forward and grip onto the front of the body. So we don't want that. And the fascia has no option, because gravity will force the fascia to come down this way, and the fascia is actually trying to hold the body straight up. So we don't want that. We want to be placed in a position where the fascia from behind the body don't have to work all the time and being exhausted. So that's the basics, the first steps. And then what I noticed in myself is many of us have some kind of yoga practice these days, or Pilates, and these are amazing exercises. What I realized is that many teachers over communicate that we need to tuck the bum. We don't want that, not for our pelvic health. So what we want is the natural curve in the spine. So you don't want to tuck and kind of neutralize the low back, which a tucking does. As soon as you tuck and draw the belly in, so you point the sitting bones down toward the heels and you draw the belly button in, it feels kind of good because you get a smaller stomach. Maybe, you're holding it at least more inside, and you are lengthening the back. But what happens is that the pelvis gets completely out of alignment. And actually, it's easier for the internal organs in the pelvis to slip out from that position. So if we have a curve in the back, our openings, the vaginal opening, will be more towards the back and not down. If we tuck, the vaginal opening will be pointing downwards, and gravity will have a pull here as well, and it's easier for the organs to actually create more pressure for the pelvic floor muscles, ligaments, and fascia. So we don't want to tuck. That's another really important one. And I had to relearn this because I have been tucking as a yoga teacher, having so many classes every day, telling my students all day long to tuck. Regarding the stomach also, we should just be very relaxed in the stomach. So since you're not going to tuck and you're not going to draw the belly button toward the spine, you can think the opposite with the belly button. So you just let everything loose, and I'm going to get more into this, but we want to breathe belly breaths. So we want to expand the belly. And I know for some women with prolapse and pelvic floor dysfunction that is not very comfortable. I'm going to get into different options later in the video. So I just want to finalize with, you want to really stack everything from the heels. When you have that weight well positioned, you want to stack everything from there, and really always think about lengthening the top of the head toward the heaven. So really kind of lengthening between the vertebrae. And this is going to create so much more space for you to be able to do the correct breathing. So this elongation of the spine and lifting of the heart toward the chin is really going to facilitate for all the muscles in the torso that are involved with the breathing, and that's pretty much all of them, to really be able to take full breaths. And why is it important? Now we are going more into the breathing part. Why is it important to take these full breaths? So many of us are chest breathers. We breathe up here, especially when fear, stress, or pain happens. That's the body's reaction. We're not breathing in a complete way. And it's really damaging actually for the systems in the body. Not only like how the blood circulates and oxygenates every single cell in the body, but also the nervous system. It's gonna get even more stressed. So it's a bad spiral. You breathe up here, the nervous system gets stressed, and that stress causes you to continue to breathe up here. So what we want to do is take full breaths. And what do I mean by that? The lungs the lungs are positioned from the collarbones somewhere and all the way down where the rib cage ends, and even a bit further down on the back side actually. And we have something connected to the lungs that are called alveoles. And the alveoles are the ones transporting the oxygen into the bloodstream. So they are like keys. They are super important for our breathing to happen and to be complete into every single cell in the body. So the alveoles are very few up here. So when we are chest breathers, we don't get in like the oxygen that comes in, the small amount of oxygen that actually comes in, the alveoles are not even able to pick up into the bloodstream because it's too few of them. The majority of the alveoles that we have in the body are actually connected like by the bottom of the lungs. And it's so many alveoles, I think down there, if you would like take them up and unfold them, it would be like a football court or something. It's so much space, but it's furthest down in the lungs. So we need to mentally think of breathing all the way to the bottom of the lungs. And so here now comes, I know many women are confused. Should I be doing the belly breaths? That will create pressure down in the pelvic floor. Or is there any other way I can breathe? So I personally didn't feel comfortable doing the belly breaths. And now I'm just assuming that you all know what it is. Belly breathing is just simply breathing like a baby does. And if you haven't seen a baby breathing, I will explain. So you only breathe through the nose. Very, very seldom do you breathe through the mouth. And as you inhale, it's almost only your belly that goes out. And it's okay, we're actually not breathing all the way into the belly. What happens is we fill up the lungs all the way to the base of the lungs, and the lungs and diaphragm will push the internal organs out. So that's actually the push in the belly. The internal organs are softly just pushing the belly out. And the diaphragm gets a really good, nice strengthening exercise, and the internal organs will be massaged internally, and it will create more blood flow through all of the systems. So if you don't feel comfortable in breathing this way, you feel it's creating any kind of pressure down in your vagina or pelvic floor, or if you feel scared that is going to happen, there are still one way to really activate, almost in the same way as the belly breathing, to activate the breathing muscles and also connect to the pelvic floor. and that is called lateral breathing. And I have a video here with 10 minutes of lateral breathing, and you only actually need to practice lateral breathing for about 10 minutes every day, and that will create a change both in your posture but also in your breathing pattern. So that's a great exercise, and then you will slowly start to breathe more from the lower part of your rib cage, and that's the lateral breath. So if this is the rib cage, instead of breathing up here where the chest breathers would breathe, you would expand in the rib cage and then exhale, and it goes all the way back. But not so much is happening in the belly. Sometimes the belly will rise a bit too, or move outwards a bit too. That's completely fine. If you really focus on the rib cage, that's where the action will be. And in lateral breathing, it's foundational to breathe in all directions. So you want to breathe to the front, to the sides diagonally, and backwards diagonally, and to the back. And that's why it's really good to stay on the floor doing this exercise. And you don't have to think about belly breathing or lateral breathing throughout the day. As long as you are practicing one of these breathings, you will create a change in your pattern in how you breathe. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that was clear. If you would like to see a video on how to do the belly breathing, I would be super happy to create one for you, so let me know in the comments below.